Here you go. It's good. So, just to give you an overview about the problem of resistance in Indonesia. If you look at the data and also the last publication made by the Andika and Martoro, they reported that only three insect species in Indonesia that has been reported resistant to insecticide so far. I think the way they collected the data based on the publication in the primary journals. We can discuss this in different aspects, but I do not want to get into the detail on this. But at least it shows to us that a very small number of report cases of resistance in Indonesia can be due to because of the research in resistance is not as intensive in other parts of the country. That's at least one of the hypotheses that I have. But the question is there any resistance to polar mealworm? So I'm going to go through with three different aspects. First, we will be sharing about what is the most common practices for controlling the polar mealworm to give us the background. And then is there any resistance happening in the field and where to go from now. So this is what we did in 2021 during the COVID time. We did a survey funded by the FAO to look at on the polar mealworm management practices. And what we found at the time is that almost 80% of the corn farmers practicing monoculture and insecticide was the main control measure, with the application of ranging between 2.5 to 5 times per season. And imamethyl benzoate was the most dominant insecticide applied for polar mealworm, starting in 2019 when the first outbreak of polar mealworm happened in Indonesia. So, looking at the pesticides that were recommended by the government at the time, there were four active ingredients, and then we look at on the three out of four just to see and to provide and to develop the baseline studies whether field population of polar mealworm, especially in Central Java, which is one of the corn center producing provinces in the country, I believe it's the second biggest, were still susceptible to the three insecticides that we selected out of four, which is imamethyl benzoate, orantraniliprol, and spinoteram. And luckily that we had a laboratory population that we were collected in 2019, which is the first time the outbreak happened. And we collected from the area where the corn is not, or it was not very intensive in terms of receiving any selection pressure from insecticide. So we hope that those larvae that were as a founding population for susceptible population were really susceptible. So in 2021, we collected 5 populations from Central Java and then doing some bioassays using the diet tipping against the insecticide. And what we found is that all 5 populations that were collected in 2021 were still susceptible to imamethyl benzoate, orantraniliprol, and spinoteram. So this one is about 2 years after the first outbreak of polar mealworm in Indonesia. So what happened in 2025? So this is the part of the doctoral research from Rubiana. And she collected a population from Jambi. Jambi is one of the provinces and where she works at the time. And she collected 11 population, each one population for each regency. And some population have shown develop very highly resistant to imamethyl benzoate. So I think if we connect with the previous slide showing that imamethyl benzoate was the most dominant insecticide, and this was about 4 years after the use, and just probably this is the first data showing the field resistance of polar mealworm to imamethyl benzoate. So the detailed data hopefully will be coming soon, sometime in the next few months, because the paper has been submitted and now is under revision. So at least I give you the information, the latest information that yes, resistance is happening in Indonesia to imamectin benzoate. What about PT corn? So as Alison mentioned, the PT has been planted by the farmers since 2023 and was intended for Asian corn borer, and with only one toxin, which is cry1AP. And we all know that this is not the toxin that are very effective for controlling the fall armyworm. But I think the question is that is the fall armyworm going to be resistant to this particular protein? Because based on our laboratory observation and also field observation, we very often found some larvae were still surviving on the on this particular PT core, and I guess that shows us that the selection pressure is happening in the field. We just did not know yet at this time because we have not done any bioassay or other studies to look at on whether the population of armyworm that we have right now has developed resistance or not. However, on the other hand, we have done some baseline study for other PT protein that are used for Asian corn borer, and there are four: Cry1A105, Cry2POP2, Cry1AP, and Cry1F. But as we might know that these two species is very often happen in the same field, probably in different plants, but different in the same field. So, and Molamiwan remains the one among two major pests in corn, and against that, most farmers are still spraying with pesticide. Even the farmers that has been planted transgenic crops, they also still spraying with chemical insecticide. So I think it's going to be, if we look at the race and the selection pressure, and also as the two previous speakers mentioned about the device diversity of crops that are available in the field and continuous generation, because we can find corn anywhere, anytime in the country, but we also that this species also can feed on different crops other than corn. So this is just to show you the data that we have been that we published last year about the baseline susceptibility of Cry1A, Cry1A105, and Cry2AP2 on Asian corn borer, which is good for Asian corn borer. But as we know that this protein is also are intended to controlling the fall armyworm. So I guess that in the next few years, it's going to be very busy studies to look at on those two species, Asian corn borer and Asian corn borers, not only to chemical insecticide, or also for the transgenic PT corn. So what about the resistance management in Indonesia, and particularly for PT crops? I think the regulation in Indonesia says that the resistance management is the responsibility of the proponent. And as Dominic said, it's similar to in Indonesia, that every proponent or the technological owner have the right to develop its own resistance management, and they submitted the proposal during the registration process, and then they will be approved by the technical committee. And after commercialization, it's mandatory that each company or each technological owner will submit information in regard with the susceptibility of the targeted pest to the government, to Indonesia, to see whether resistance has been occurring or not. Okay, this is going to be my last slide. So it's a short presentation. Hopefully we'll have a discussion from what we have now and what kind of risk that we are facing right now. What do we need from now? If I think about this, there are several items or several matters or several things that we need. But if I have to choose the top three, I'll put the one that is already on the screen. One is role of the farmers in detecting resistance. And I think by improving, raising the awareness of the farmers, the growers, and also the availability of the simple reporting system will help for not only managing, but also dealing the resistant for particular pests like fall armyworm. Because in the past, when I worked with the wheat armyworm, I think I have the benefit for receiving the information from the farmers, and then we can follow up with the necessary action to manage this particular pest. Second one is mass reading of the main pest. So we talk about fall armyworm and also the Asian corn borer. There is no way that we will be doing or we will be able to do some research on these two species, and we are not having competence, we are not having ability to look after and to do mass reading in the lab. And as David says, that the availability of the susceptible population is very important. And luckily enough that we have that population that was collected in 2019. And last but not least is the detection tools. No matter what the detection tools that we will be using, either bioassay, biochemical assay, or molecular assay, I think having the harmonized and standardized protocol, especially for regional and global purposes, including for domestic. So I think it's going to be very important because using the standardized protocol, I think the data that we'll be sharing to different parts of the world will be meaningful for comparison and also for taking the benefit from the validity of the data coming from other parts of the world. So I guess that's all I can say, Alison, and I'm happy to respond any questions, and hopefully we will have plenty of time for the discussion. Thank you very much. And I'll stop sharing.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm just inviting someone else to promote to a panelist at the same time. Multitasking, not my best thing to do. So Andy, that was fantastic. Really interesting to see what you had worked on sort of around COVID time and having that fall armyworm population there, and then revisiting and looking now. And in between, you've got the introduction of BT as well. I have a question around farmers, because I know that you work or you talk a lot with farmers out in the field. Do you see that they're using less pesticides as they've got more comfortable or more aware of fall armyworm, and it's been quite a few years now, and with the introduction of BT? Are they using less pesticides, and do they rotate their mode of action? I mean, are they aware of that, and are they doing that?
Based on my observation in the field, because I haven't not done yet since 2021 in terms of the with the systematic survey, but farmers are still using 2-3 times for fall armyworm, although they have been planting for with the transgenic corn, because they know that the transgenic corn does not protect from fall armyworm. So they still quite sprays in mainly. And rotation, yes, they do some rotation, but it's very limited in terms of the mode of action that they have. Because in many cases they are more familiar with the branding instead of the active ingredients. But from the regulation perspective, actually the government already required for every pesticide registered in Indonesia to put the classification of the mode of action based on the IRAT classification. So if the grower reads that label properly, and then it's going to be easy for them to do some rotation. But as I guess Dominic and David says, that raising the awareness, education are very important, essential for the grower as well. Thank you, Alison.
Thanks, Andy. I'm just going to throw it back to Ramesh now, and then I've got a couple of other questions I've got coming through as well. And then I'm going to ask one of our colleagues from New South Wales just to talk about one of his responses as well to one of the questions. Ramesh, to you first.
Good. Thanks, Andy, for this presentation. So considering the regulatory and stewardship challenges across different production systems, what guidance would you offer to ensure insecticides are used responsibly without compromising growers' access to essential management tools?
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned earlier, raising the awareness of this problem, I mean, resistance problem in the grower and the ground is going to be very, very important, because in many cases, when I talk with farmers, they may indicate that the insecticide that used to be very effective and it's no longer effective, but it just stopped there. They're just giving the information, but there is no plausible solution or options there available either as a knowledge or as a practical alternative for them. But this kind of information is very important. So that's why for Indonesian perspective, I think it's going to be very important if, simple system is available for the government to report, because it's going to be very difficult for anyone to collect, so many insects from different population. Even though monitoring is going to be one part, but in addition to regular monitoring, the participation of the grower in the early detection of failure in small plot is going to be very important and very powerful tool for mitigating the resistance in fall armyworm. I think that's what I can
Yes.
respond.
Good
Thank
one.